Hey, Cody, give me a mic check since it's your first time here. Does it sound like I'm in a bathroom? Or is there not that much echo now? Okay, well, I guess we'll continue with this one. I could always move back to the office, but I felt like switching it up a bit this week since it's late. Just came out here in the open, so to speak. Jeez, sweater's looking ridiculous. Okay, all right, yeah, let's wait for a few more people to stroll in. Hopefully it'll echo will go down over time. This is one of our conference rooms, so it's not, this is always here. I just don't generally use it. My office is pretty much here on the other side of this room, so I can actually, I give you guys even better look here. Check this out. Let's see. See, there you go. Bird's eye view. What do you like? Zoomed in, zoomed out? I prefer zoomed out. This way I don't, even though I look balder on the zoom out, I guess. Maybe I can just zoom in when I have like a really important point to make, like finance is bad. And then the zoom out. Oh, crazy zoomed out, loony? All right, we'll go half zoom in, half zoomed out. All right, half zoomed in, half zoomed out. How's that? I think that works. All right, we'll give it like a minute or so more. I may have to cut it short today, guys. I had a bit of a long day, and I got to get caught up on some work that I missed while I was in Riga. So, and I'd rather not be up till 3 a.m. getting it done. So, 2 a.m. is fine. Zoom in on the forehead. Yeah. I'll try to get a forehead zoom at some point today. And I'm sure it'll be me more at least. Yeah, Bjorn, when funding. The question on everybody's mind, forehead zoom. All right. You know what, guys? Let's just get rolling. People want to check up on something, they can always come in later and watch the tape. Okay, here we go. So, for those of you who have never been here at one of these great AMA sessions, because they all are great. Hold on, let's make AMAs great again. Sorry, guys, forgot to put this baby on mute. Okay, so for those of you who have never been to one of these, as I said, let's make AMAs great again. This little week in crypto, essentially what we do, we have an agenda. Market news comes first. We have 10 pieces of market news that are correlated over the past week. We may have more this week. No, still just 10 because we missed last week. I was in Korea and kept trying to do it, but I kept getting sidetracked with meetings. So we do 10 pieces of news correlated from our great elite Telegram group. I give a quick comment on each of the news stories. It takes about a minute each. That's 10 minutes. We then go to a Kevin Explains Crypto. I usually have a word or a phrase from the crypto verse or sphere or space, whatever one of those annoying words you like to use to describe this industry. And I just describe what it means in layman's terms. Then we do a live Q&A here on YouTube, somewhere to this side over here are your YouTube questions. And then we do Reddit questions that were also submitted over the last week, maybe 2 weeks this time. And if there's time permitting, I'll answer those. I'm going to try to go for about 30 to 40 minutes, and then I'm going to have to cut out. So I tried to start early, but unfortunately we had some technical difficulties in this new room. Well, not new room, but this room I choose to be in rather than my office. I just think some people think my office looks like my mother's basement or something. So just wanted to switch it up a bit. A little too concrete, too much concrete in there. So let's get hey Mohammed, let's get going on the market news, and we'll roll on. Okay. So market news number 1 of 10. Pompliano, the U.S. must tokenize the dollar to remain competitive. Anthony Pompliano says lots of things on Twitter. And he's been on, I think it's CNBC a few times. Is it CNBC? I forget which network he usually frequents, but they don't have to tokenize the dollar to remain competitive. You know why? The US dollar and all major FX currencies, major hard currencies around the world, major fiat currencies, have been dematerialized for the past 20 years. Governments can move debt and move money cross-border pretty darn fast over virtual ledger systems. The reason why most countries hold US debt is because it allows them then to transact in US dollars in near real time because they have collateral. So not really, Anthony, but at the same time, and I said this 2 years ago now, when we first started this journey, that currencies, hard currencies, fiat currencies would be tokenized. My guess at the time was that it was going to be a Commonwealth country first, Australia, Canada, et cetera, et cetera. China obviously has already started the process. The Marshall Islands, I think, was the first country to do so. And we'll see. I don't think the US is going to follow right after China. But look, currencies have already been dematerialized for the most part. They will be tokenized. We're not going to call them crypto. We're not going to call them stable coins. We're not going to call them anything. We're going to call them currencies, and they're simply going to be, instead of the ledger system they use now, because obviously they use a ledger system, they're going to use blockchain or some type, probably not blockchain, but some type of distributed ledger technology that has some degree of whether it's decentralization or immutability, right? So moving on, number 2 on the list of 10, Swiss Digital Exchange plans initial digital offering in 2020. So yeah, the Swiss have always been, let's say, progressive in terms of finance. But unfortunately, however you want to look at it, the way Swiss does the regulation is they're mostly about exemptions, right? So FINMA doesn't normally create new regulation, though they have created a few bills over the last couple of years. It's mostly about just getting exemptions and allowing people to test things. It's almost like an active sandbox. So there's going to be multiple. Everybody's going to get into the tokenization of assets. Everyone, every stock exchange, every real estate company, every major Fortune 500 will get into tokenization one way or another. Don't let Tim Cook's little announcement that they won't launch a cryptocurrency sway you from the fact that Apple also said they would never make a phone. They also said they wouldn't get into many industries they ended up getting into. The point is that they're not going to, there's no reason for them to make a cryptocurrency. Tokenization that makes a lot of sense. And they're all going to do it at some point. So, you're going to see a lot of news like this. It's not groundbreaking. It's not going to move price, but you're going to see it. Number 3 on the list of 10, launch of Binance US can have far-reaching effects on crypto market. No, it can't. I could go for a long time on why it can't. But look, there's already giants in the US. Coinbase is obviously raising the rates for small traders on Coinbase Pro. Almost up 233%, between 100 and 233%. But you know what? Small traders aren't really going to feel that much of a pinch. Most small traders buy 1 Bitcoin and never come back again. So if you're going to spend 8K and instead of costing you, instead of costing you $8 US, let's say at Binance, it ends up costing you, $24 US. Most people aren't even going to see that, right? Crypto people will see it, but what crypto people were trading on Coinbase Pro if they were only trading small volumes, to be quite honest? The Binance is not going to have a huge, they're not, the only reason Binance got so big is because they basically listed everything, and they were one of the first to tokenize, and they were able to use their token, underpin their token, and manipulate the shit out of the token price to basically bring in more and more people into their exchange, and they listed pretty much everything. They can't do that. They can't do either of those in the U.S. So what separates them? Price? Price is not the only factor that can push you forward. Plus, I think a lot of U.S. residents, at least financially savvy U.S. residents, understand that Binance their parent company is probably going to come under attack at some point by the U.S. government. Do they really want to be in the sister company of that company when it happens? That's a question. Number 4 on the list of 10, Blockchain Transparency Institute. 64% of Tether is used for fake trading. I love how they get really approximate on the number. This is a no shit Sherlock comment. A lot of Tether is used for fake trading. A lot of the Tether is actually used by Tether in between their own accounts to manipulate their own volumes so that people continue to use Tether. I don't know if it's 64, it could be 94, it could be 654. It's definitely a large piece of volume. I like the Blockchain Transparency Institute. Blockchain's transparent in its very nature, so it just kind of makes you giggle. Obviously, centralized exchanges can hide a lot of things. So number 4 on the list of 10, number 5, sorry, Ripple acquires Icelandic crypto exchange to expand presence in Europe. Yeah, okay. I didn't actually know about this one. This is the first time I'm seeing this. Haven't read the story, but Ripple is doing a lot of changes to their website. They got rid of any reference to XRapid, XCurrent. And I think they're going to rebrand into one single service. And they had problems onboarding institutions to connect to their remittance network. So I guess they're going to do it themselves. And this is probably step one in many steps for that to happen. Number 6 on the list of 10, SIA Networks creator Nebulous settles with SEC for $225K. Like Block One's EOS, no fault admitted. One thing about Block One, which I don't think is even on this list, probably was on last week's, but Block One, everybody's like, 25 million. Some people said that was a big fine. Some people said it was small in comparison to the 4 billion that they raised. Lots of reports out there that 4 billion is actually not legitimate because they were basically taking money as it came in, recycling it, and buying more of their own tokens to increase the amount that was raised. Nobody really has an idea that puts those rumors out, how much they actually raised. But let's assume they did raise the 4 billion. The coolest thing about the SEC's decision, especially on Block One, was that they focused on when they were selling before there was a platform. And I believe they fined them essentially 100% of the money that was raised in that time period, which is usually what the SEC does. The fines are usually close to 100% or more of what was raised. But once the token went from being a security under their guidance to being a utility or a non-security, something that's not regulated, the fine didn't continue. So the SEC actually played pretty honest ball here. They didn't go outside of their boundaries, which is awesome for the market, to be quite honest. And if they did raise 4 billion, quite a small fine for Block One, so they should have no problem paying it. The fact that no fault is admitted, okay, that's just a little legal sidestep. Who cares? You got fined, you paid it, you admitted fault by paying. That's it. Because you could have fought and you didn't, because you probably would have lost. So even though you didn't publicly or officially admit fault, you paid the fine, you're guilty in the eyes of pretty much everybody. Having said that, though, I think the SEC is really has shown that they're not trying to overstep their own purview, which is good. Number 7 on the list of 10, Coinbase offers 1.25 interest on USDC deposits. Yep, look, all these crypto companies are starting all this with staking and things like that. Obviously, they're using that UDC money to probably pad their own capitalization, so that they're probably able to offer at some point more staking opportunities, lending, margin posting, etc. And it allows them easier. They're having so much, let's say, having money on their books that they know the majority isn't going to move around all the time, gives a company a lot of flexibility. So paying 1.25% interest for that on a monthly basis, roughly 13, 14% a year, is much less than the amount they would pay to get debt to actually bring on credit, let's say from a bank or another financial institution. So it makes sense. You're going to see a lot more of this in this industry over time. Though at some point it'll probably become more regulated, and then at that point it may just cease to exist. Number 8 on the list of 10, Binance integrates CoinFirm's AML platform to comply with FATF rules. So I know CoinFirm. I know a few of the guys over there. I'm going to be speaking with one of them. I think we're on one of the same panels. If not, we're definitely at the same event here in town, CryptoFin, 14th, 15th of October. If anybody wants to come to town to have a look. I know CoinFirm. I know what they do. Binance continually tries to make it seem that they're upping their game. They're still not upping their game. In many places, they need to be upping their game, but they're trying. The problem is they might be too little, too late. Let's see how this integration rolls. FATF rules are not that hard to comply with if you're compliant, because you're simply asked to send information to an exchange. If you're sending funds from your exchange to another, you simply have to send corresponding information to that exchange. If you've collected that information via whatever means, then what's the problem? And if a client doesn't want you to send that information, they simply move their money to an external wallet that they control, not an exchange, and the FATF rules of the travel rules don't apply. So anyway, Binance likes to make news to make people think that they're actually doing something to protect them. In reality, they're not doing much. Number 9 on the list of 10, betting on Bitcoin prices may soon be deemed illegal gambling. Well, look, the term betting is used because they're unregulated assets, right? If it becomes a regulated asset like a commodity, it's no longer betting, it's trading. But then you still need a license. And if you don't have the license, then it's illegal to offer the product. And in some areas of the world, trading is illegal. So this is a bit of a clickbait article, I guess. But trading on Bitcoin is already illegal. Trading on anything is already illegal in many countries. Not many, several countries around the world. Betting it can only be betting if it's speculating not on a regulated asset for the most part. And so in many places of the world, Bitcoin isn't classified as a regulated asset. I do think you're probably going to see countries where this happens. maybe countries like Malaysia, maybe countries like India, maybe countries, some of the, but I don't expect this in any major economy, but we'll have to see how it unfolds. Number 10 on the list, 10 institutional investors are manipulating the price of Bitcoin, Arcane Research report. I think the backed release is showing you really what the true underlying institutional appetite is right now for Bitcoin. I think the volume yesterday was 1 Bitcoin. I think the first day was 5 million worth of Bitcoin. Now you can look at CME, substantially higher. Now think about this. What is so not revolutionary, but what is so interesting, or what should bring people in because of backed, right? Because it's backed by physical Bitcoin, right? So Bitcoiners know, or should know, that should mean that the more people that buy and back, the more Bitcoin is pulled off the physical market, the more demand, the higher the price should go on all connected exchanges. However, the institutional investors don't care. They are at CME because they already had accounts at CME. They're already onboarded. They can easily buy and sell a volatile asset, put it at 1%, 0.5%, 2% of their portfolio, and move on. However, they're not even taking the time it takes to get onboarded at backed. So they don't give a shit about the fact that backed is physically backed by Bitcoin. They don't care whether it's cash delivered, whether it's Bitcoin delivered. They don't care, which tells me that institutional investors really don't care about the underlying benefits of Bitcoin. They're just there to speculate. So then you have to ask yourself, how much of that volume is new volume coming from new institutional investors? And I would say if you're new and you have to get onboarded either at CME or backed, why wouldn't you choose backed? So what that tells me is there's not much new institutional demand for Bitcoin. And most of the institutional demand was simply there because somebody found a way to get already onboarded clients access to Bitcoin or synthetic Bitcoin, and some took the plunge. And that's it. Okay, so that gets us through the news. Let's run the Kevin Explains Crypto real quick, and then we can move into questions. We'll at least have 20, 30 minutes to get through those, and I'll see if we can get into some Reddit questions as well. So Kevin Explains Crypto this week, cool term, a term that I think most crypto people know, but I think no non-crypto or new crypto people probably know what it means, and that's Satoshi. So I guess everybody has heard Satoshi being the pseudonym, or maybe not pseudonym, of the person or persons or whatever who created Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto. Now, the term here, Satoshi, is referring, I guess, I don't know who invented the term, actually. That'd be a better question. Off the top of my head, I don't remember if I've ever even read that. But Satoshi is the smallest movement Bitcoin can make, right? It's to 8 decimal points. It's 1/100 millionth of a Bitcoin. Normally, people will call these sats for short. So why do they do that? Well, first of all, one of the big benefits of Bitcoin is that you can fractionalize it, right? So you don't have to buy 1 Bitcoin. You can buy 1/100 millionth of a Bitcoin, right? So that means that even if Bitcoin cost 100 million US dollars, you could buy a sat for $1. So it enables, people of any creed, religion, poor, not poor, rich, to be able to buy Bitcoin, right? So that's one of the main things. And secondary, a lot of cryptos are priced against Bitcoin. And you don't want to have to be quoting in Bitcoin because you get to, this is worth 0.000275626787775 Bitcoin. You want to shorten that. That is about 2,300 sats. So anyway, that's what a Satoshi is in terms of how you, calculate how much Bitcoin you owe somebody when it's a fraction of 1 whole Bitcoin. So let's get into our live Q&A. Let's see. So Bjorn asking when funding. So the Brazilians, guys. So we're still in a bit of a holding pattern with the Brazilians. So they came back with a few negotiations that they wanted to do. Some of the individuals that were in the initial funding round decided that they had other commitments and that they wanted to not be a part of this round. The others stayed in. And now we're in a bit of a negotiation to see exactly in which way we move forward for both CoinMetro and for the CSD. However, in that time, we now have 2 or 3 other funding possibilities that are getting close as well. So Brazilians are still there. Just instead of 6 Brazilians, I think we now have 4. And those 4 we're now working on a better schedule so that they have a clear schedule of when the money needs to hit, what size deposits need to hit, what the obligations are on their side and what the obligations are on our side. So moving forward still, we should have gone through this already. Actually, we went quite quick through this LOI process, and I think they failed to ask some important questions, which were finally asked in the last week or so. And it's allowing us, even though maybe slowing us down a bit, it's going to allow us to move a bit faster. Because one thing from a fundraising side, and I've been through fundraising many times, that is just as bad as taking forever to get an answer is getting an answer too quick. It means that not enough analysis was done. And you want an investor to ask tough questions. You don't want the tough questions a year after they invest. You want tough questions before they invest. So anyway, we also have a few other possibilities, and I'll get into those probably with some of these questions that come up. When LP, when currencies, were you able to get the provider to do fixed fees? So Mohammed, when liquidity provider? So we have a liquidity provider lined up. Most of the tech is already done on the integration. There obviously is a cost for us to bring on this liquidity provider. So we're waiting for basically a fixed date for when funding is coming in to make sure that, look, it's not a huge amount of money, and I don't want this to sound like we can't afford it. It's not about affording it. It's about, we know our burn rate. We can play with our burn rate. We can move forward with our burn rate. Even adding 5% on top of that burn rate. If that starts, after 2 or 3 months, that 5% can eat. If you have 3 months worth of runway, now you only have 2.7 months worth of runway. And then after 6 months, you may only have X amount worth of runway. So even though it's a small amount, our internal policies are right now, we don't add in costs until we have either revenue or funds that can extend us to at least where we are in terms of, let's say, capital in the bank in terms of our runway. So we're simply waiting to get 100% clarity from the funding side on a date. And I think within this month, hopefully much before the month ends, but within this month, we will have some clarity, and then we'll be able to move forward. So we've worked on the integration to make sure that's ready. So it's coming. In terms of when the currencies. So I just talked to the provider on the currencies today. First currencies to be launched on their site will be euro and pound. The target date for them was the 15th. They said they may be a bit late on that, might be by a week or two, but I will get some more clarity on that on Monday. And then I want to find out exactly when the other 24 currencies are going to be available. And again, clarity will come probably on Monday into next week. Fixed fees, when they launch, yes, the fees will be fixed. And that's why we're waiting. Right now, we could do euro with them, perhaps even pound with percentage-based fees. And I simply don't want to do percentage-based fees. So I'm waiting. The fixed fees, once they launch this full product, will be there. So fees will be fixed. Hey, Kevin, this is from Brian. Are you happy with Parsec IEO? You think sales is going good? Will be more marketing for this IEO? Well, you never know what's going to happen when you run any new product, right? And obviously, 2 days before the Parsec IEO launch, Bitcoin took a plunge. What was it? 20-some-odd%, right? So not the best timing, I guess, but nothing you can do about that. Parsec will run multiple rounds. So they'll probably, whether they run those rounds with every round with us or they run rounds elsewhere as well in different regions of the world, remains to be seen. But look, I look at many successes here, right? The product was launched. The IEO system works. The system that we created, I think, will help protect investors, and that system works. We've seen it with limited spend up before the initial IEO. We saw some funds come in day one. Marketing has started to be a bit more aggressive from their side, and we've started to spend a bit of money on our side as well, on traffic and a few other things. So, this is just the whitelist part of the sale. Public sale will happen after. It'll be longer than the whitelist sale. We'll see the funds collected. I do think we'll be a bit surprised on the amount of funds that are collected in comparison to what's been collected so far. Look, it's the first one we've done, right? And yes, there wasn't a huge amount of money on either side spent on marketing. But there will be more money spent on marketing, and I think we can kind of pat ourselves on the back for the successes, right? Even if we spend way more money on marketing, it doesn't necessarily mean there'd be a bigger return, and that's not a failure of Parsec or of CoinMetro, right? The goal here is to raise money, and they're going to raise money, and the goal here is to have an option for people, especially once we get into that sandbox, especially once we can have a more broader reach, a system that's proven that it works, and that technically people can come in and raise funds, and they can raise funds through multiple countries of the world, and they have a conduit to do so in a regulated environment. And all those things we've proven. So in that light, it's a success. And I do think, like I said, you'll be surprised at how much they raised in the end versus what was raised in this the first 5-6 days so far. Why won't you list Factum? Oliver made me ask you. Factum. Off the top of my head, I don't even recall Factum. I think if there was a few companies that got in touch with me over the past 2 weeks that I passed on to Oliver. If it's one of those, Oliver and I had a brief chat about it, but I haven't actually. I'm going to see Oliver on Monday here in the office, so we'll have a bigger chat. So you're going to have to ask me next week because I can't answer your question right now. This is from when can we expect margin trading for dummies tutorial videos in the whole academy? Whole academy, some of that stuff needs to be revamped. Some of it's already antiquated. It needs to be redone, guys. It's gonna take a bit of money to do so. So not necessarily on the front burner right now. In terms of margin trading for dummies, I know Carlo and I think Oliver now as well are working on tutorials and videos. So I would expect those to start coming out over the next couple of weeks. How high is the chance of the POTUS impeachment actually succeeding? Look, there's been 2 impeachments in U.S. history, right? Nixon and Clinton. Nixon left office voluntarily, and Clinton decided to stay. With Trump, it's a bit different. Look, it doesn't look good to impeach a president. I think the overall the impeachment hasn't really affected his base. And if there was an election today, Trump would probably win. And the reason being is that history tells us that if the economy is doing well or better than previous, at least decent, where people don't feel a recession in their pocket, they vote for the incumbent. And I think the Democrats know that, and that's why the big thing in the news right now is how the economy is starting to falter, which it really isn't. So we'll have to see how that pans out. In terms of the impeachment could happen. The big risk to Trump about an impeachment is there's so much bad blood in Washington towards Trump that he might actually get prosecuted after he leaves the office because they just hate him. They don't like him. That's never happened before in the history of the U.S. And what does that say about the U.S. From either side, that a sitting president once unseated would be sent to prison? That usually only happens in banana republics, guys, and third world countries. And there's a reason for that some countries don't understand how that looks on the outside. Forget about your Standard & Poor rating of U.S. debt, which would go to shit. It would cause so much reverberations throughout the world markets that even worldwide leaders, even if they hate Trump, would probably tell the U.S. not to prosecute. So I think you're just seeing a lot of political back and forth, and it's going to continue until the elections start. I tend to think they put maximum pressure on Trump to see if he slips, but I think at the end of the day, the worst that'll happen is the impeachment process goes through. The worst that happens is that he does get impeached, but he will not get taken out of office. And I don't think they go to prosecute him after he leaves. When is TRAM? So TRAM has, after the release of our CoinMetro Direct, is now one of the things everybody's focusing on. Though before TRAM gets finished, the website is what currently his front end is working on. In terms of back end, TRAM is pretty much done. It requires a bit of front end work. So right after the website, I'm saying 2, maybe 3 weeks from now max, we will see that come online. What needs to happen in the crypto market for it to decouple from Bitcoin? Maturity. People need to understand how to put value behind tokens. How do you value a token? And the market itself, meaning the people that trade the market, need to mature. They need to understand that because Bitcoin moves, there's no rational reason why anything else should move. And I think we're definitely further along than we were 2 years ago. But it takes time, guys. That's it. It takes time. Plus, in the fact, utility tokens are hard to value. They're hard for the market to value. So how do you value the utility? What does one token give you? And why should this token be worth more than that token? It has nothing to do with how much money the company makes in terms of the value of the token. It may lead to higher demand of that token, but what does that token give to why there should be demand? So they're hard to value. Let's just put it that way. Bitcoin's also hard to value, but time. It takes time. The entire market, from the traders to the way the market's traded to the regulation, everything needs to mature for the assets to mature. It's one of the oldest thriving blockchain projects. Thanks for answering them. All right, yeah. I mean, look, I consider myself a decently smart individual, but I don't know every blockchain project. So it might be one of the oldest. Great. We will definitely have a look. Just because it's old doesn't mean it's good. Just because it's good doesn't mean that it's compatible or that it fits within the regulation. And even if that's the case, it doesn't mean that it actually makes sense for us to list. So there's a lot of things that we need to consider. So like I said, ask me next week. I didn't make you shill FatCon. Now looking into it for you, Leroy. Okay. Oliver's having a look. So Oliver will give me some feedback. How is the CSD development going? CSD development's going good. We're in, I think, the second week of the first 4 month, or third week now of the first 4 month development cycle to get the MVP into the sandbox. I'll tell you what, in terms of project lead in Latvia is on point with his organization. So very, very impressed with how they put everything together and how tight their sprints are. So hats off to them for that. So yeah, going well. Do you think other companies will choose CM for their IEOs, given that the Parsec IEO was a complete failure? Well, the Parsec IEO isn't complete yet. It's the whitelist sale. It's still not complete, and there's still the public sale to go. So let's not jump to conclusion. And look, I met companies in Korea that have done 100 IEOs in 3 months, and I looked at some of those. Some of them raised less than 5,000 euro, but companies still go there. It's not just people tend to think. Look, I don't know what Alex. I don't know what you do in your life. I don't know if you've owned a business, if you've worked for somebody in your life, where you work, what you do. No idea, right? But I can tell you that sometimes no matter what effort you put into something, no matter how good your product is, no matter how much marketing you don't do, whatever, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a success in everybody's eyes. I see lots of success in that IEO platform. I see lots of success on Parsec's side. Just because it may take more than one round to raise the money that they need to raise doesn't make it a failure. And yes, I absolutely know. We still have, we had a list of 3 companies. We now have a list of 12 companies that are actively looking to do IEOs with us. Look, some people spend more money on marketing, they get more money. Some people will spend a ton on marketing and not get anything. Some people will spend no money on marketing and raise a ton, right? So you never know. The platform works. For our side, for CoinMetro, the platform works, and yes, companies will still do IEOs. No problem whatsoever. And in terms of Parsec, they will raise the money they need. Whether they raise it here, whether they raise it in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rounds here, whether they do 2 rounds here, 1 round here, 3 rounds there, 4 rounds there, they will raise the money they need because they have a great product. They have a product that's needed by the industry, and it works. So no failures in my book. How's the progress in Montenegro? Great process. Montenegro's going great, guys. We're going to be back there in November to do a workshop with the central bank on how to do DVP, that's delivery versus payment, basically settlement with the central bank using stable coins. We now have their application package. CoinMetro will submit their application probably sometime next week to be included as the first official entry into the sandbox. Once we do that, we are already in the process of establishing a company in Montenegro. That process will start early next week as well. We will establish the company, get the banking set up, get into the sandbox, start providing the services we already provide globally, locally in Montenegro. And on top of that, we will start to offer trading of regulated assets. So everything's moving ahead as planned in Montenegro. News from the Korean trip. Well, lots of good talks for business development from Chainlink, CEO of Chainlink. So me and Sergey had about an hour conversation, maybe even a bit longer. Mostly wrapped around the CSD, though we're going to establish a relationship there to see how we can use Oracle, the Chainlink oracles and the CSD to make, let's say fungible tokens, but add non-fungible values to them via oracles that pull data off-chain, from off-chain. I have a pretty good idea in my head on how we can do this. They're very interested in working with us on that. So I think as we progress that forward, we're gonna create a bit of a relationship between them and CoinMetro as well. I explained the story about LHV and Coinbase and the listing, and they said thank you. So we officially got a thank you from Chainlink for that. And I think eventually we'll get them to do a bit of shilling for us inside their community for CoinMetro as well. It's going to take a bit of work because we need to show them that we're serious about using their system inside of that CSD, and they need to see the benefit. I think they already see the benefit, but they need to see it. They need to really be able to see it tangibly. I also talked to Algorand about working with the CSD and possibly getting some money out of their foundation. Few other things happened for CoinMetro as well. I made a few contacts for possible listings, possible IEOs as well, and a couple possible fundraising opportunities in Korea as well. Big story out of there, I guess, is simply that the business development angle, to be quite honest. And from the IBA, the International Bar Association, panel went great. Lots of questions. We have a offer to go to Canada to talk to the regulator, possibly do a workshop with the regulator there. So good for both companies, a little bit of awareness. So. Trading comparables is a hint in trading. Wait a minute. So Mohammed said trading comparables is a hit and miss as well. I'm not sure what you mean by that, Mohammed, so I'm going to move on. Smith & Wesson, which means utility tokens would never decrease in price if there's a lot of people using the exchange. It means more people using it, more success. Yeah, well, if your utility token is tied to usage, like ours is, that should be the case, yes. How long till CM is available to securities in the sandbox from now? We should apply next week. I don't know how long it'll take to get approved. I tend to think it'll be quite fast. I would say before the end of the month, we will have the company established, we'll be in the sandbox, and at that point, we'd be able to list securities. So it can be as fast as 2 weeks, could take maybe 3 weeks. I don't think it would take much longer. What is CoinMetro stance on privacy coins? We don't list privacy coins, we never have. We've had a policy since day one not to list them. It has nothing to do with my personal opinion on privacy coins, which is basically meaningless. It has to do with the fact that regulators do not, well, my vision that regulators would never accept privacy coins, and then eventually they will get delisted from major exchanges, which has already started to happen. So at some point that stance may change, but to be honest, I don't see it changing. One of the major reasons why regulators are now turning their eye to crypto and starting to like it is the traceability factor. And if you remove that, you now have an anonymous way. Basically, the systemic issue of money laundering with cash becomes digitalized and easier to move around. Makes money laundering easier, not harder. Why would they ever accept that? Maybe consider stopping to tell us to don't look at prices by some XM at the end of AMAs. Every time I do, the price looks a little lower. Look, markets come in cycles. I'll give you a quote that I got from Vitalik Buterin there at Korea. They asked him a question about what he thought about pricing on Bitcoin, and he said something along the lines of, "I thought it was a binary choice. You know, they solved the scalability. Bitcoin goes up. They didn't solve Bitcoin go down. I was surprised to see that they didn't solve scalability and Bitcoin went up." And then he said, and I quote, "Markets are weird." So markets are weird because people are weird. And markets move in cycles because people are cyclical. So don't think that just because you're stuck in a certain type of cycle now that cycle will last forever, because it will not. The future is bright. Look, the only way you fail in life is by stopping. People fail because they stop. There will always be barriers in life, right? But the barriers are actually the plan, the part of the plan. You're not going to have life without barriers. So you need to get through those barriers. When you stop, you fail. If you don't stop, you don't fail. That doesn't mean you may need to change course, dig a hole underneath that barrier, jump over one, take a helicopter over another one, punch a hole through the next one. But you don't stop, you don't fail. That's how life works, guys. That's why successful people are successful and people that aren't successful aren't, because they stop. Thanks, Kevin. In this case, a follow-up question. Has CM benefited a lot from signups from this IEO? We've gotten, I don't know the amount of signups off my head, so I'm not gonna even try to say I do. But I know we've seen, I think now, triple-digit signups. So yes, we have seen signups. And the actual conversion into signups is quite high, though the conversion from signups right now to actually spending into the IEO are low, which probably, in my mind, is a funding issue, meaning I think a lot of people that are coming in are newbies to crypto, and they have to move in their euros, and many of them might not be based in Europe, which means they need to Swift wire in, they have to go to their bank maybe, etc. So that's probably why you're seeing a delay. That's why we're seeing a delay, I think, because the conversions from people coming to CoinMetro site and signing up for CoinMetro is actually quite high. Whereas once they're signed up through the process, the conversion of the IEO is lower. So anyway, just my thought process right now. I'm confused. When moon? Mandatory question. Yeah, well, you saw the picture. There's a picture. I was at the moon in South Korea. So, like I said, guys, markets are cyclical. Failure happens when you stop. I will put hand to heart on this one. with you guys here on this AMA, I don't stop. I'm like the Energizer Bunny. I keep going, I keep going, I keep going, I keep going. I don't give up. So no matter how much shit gets thrown at me, no matter how many walls I have to jump over, no matter how many times I have to go back to the drawing board, I do so. And that's just the way I work. So moon will happen. How long it takes us to get to that moon depends on when funding rolls in for the extra rocket fuel. But it will happen, right? Timelines aside, it will happen. I'm confused about TRAM. First, your website was announced to be done in August. Then it was pushed back for TRAM, and now TRAM is pushed back for the website. Well, there was actually, so you're not confused about TRAM, you're confused about the timeline. So the initial website was ready in August, the initial new website. And I looked at it, went through it, and basically said I didn't like it. I didn't like many aspects of it, and I told them throw it in the trash and start over. And that's what we did. And then we started working on TRAM. And then we got through basically what was the back end of TRAM, and in the process of working on the front end, the UI UX, became clear that we needed to get conversions better on the front end of our website, which means we needed that new website sooner rather than later. So we went and pushed all the front end guys onto the website where the back end was being worked on. The back end got finished before we expected, but the guys we haven't finished the front end because they're working on the website. That's essentially what happened. I really like that sofa. Thanks, appreciate that. Kevin, how do you think CoinMetro will look to the end of the year? I mean, in your mind, is everything will go according to your plan, and what kind of platform should we see? Hey, Brian, so TRAM will be out, margin posting should be out by the end of the year. We should have multiple fiat currencies. We should be in Montenegro as well, doing regulated assets, and we should be getting close to launching the CSD alongside to do a full capital market push with I think a lot of PR and a lot of market exposure still in Montenegro. And I think we will have some money in the bank from investors. So I think that, once money rolls in from the investors, I think marketing will be one of the major things we tackle. And we already know that we've gotten our conversion pretty good. I think the process for KYC has definitely been streamlined. It'll be a bit more streamlined in the future. And we're going to offer something that no one else is really offering. And I think, whether you offer something new is great, but just doing something better is always good as well. The problem is not everybody knows that we do something better because we haven't been marketing. So with marketing, I do expect our numbers to rise quite quickly. So by the end of the year, I had said before about $500,000 a day. I still think that is a good goal to shoot for. That gives us a base, not enough to cover our expenses, but it gives us some revenue. I think we're going to see some revenue out of Montenegro as well, which will be a separate company, which will also help us. Look, steady growth always wins the game, guys. Quick growth can get you where you want to go. You make lots of mistakes though when you get quick growth. Look at any company. Look at WeWork. Look at Uber. Look at all these companies that see extremely fast growth. What happens is the growth outpaces the actual innovation, the actual company. And you end up getting a company that's overvalued. And when people realize something's overvalued, it gets destroyed very quickly. I don't want an overvalued company that has no value. I'd rather have an undervalued company that slowly gains value. And eventually that y-axis takes off, moon. I think that's a fair assessment where we'll be. When are the huge news coming from Korea or elsewhere? Nothing huge from Korea, but some very key talks that can lead to some very key door openings, which I think is always good. And look, the more exposure we get, the more exposure I get even as being at these events and meeting people that generally didn't know who I was before, the better it is for the company. I think that we're on a growth path, guys, and doors are starting to open up in many different places. And whether it's the CSD, whether it's launching CoinMetro Direct, all these different things will lead to something very big. It just takes time. And I know that, when you look at these 1 or 2 or 3 or a small handful of companies that, can do these, that it seems like they do these massive things overnight, it can seem like, well, why can't we do that? And that's just, generally speaking, 99% of the biggest companies in the world didn't do it fast. That's just the way the world works. So don't know if it was answered, but when MMs for alts? So MM is already, the money market maker's already been integrated. It's about cash flow right now. So we're waiting to get a positive date. Doesn't mean the money needs to be in hand, but I need a date on paper for when funds start to roll in, and we will launch market making. I expect that to happen this month. Can you share anything noteworthy about the market maker testing a bot earlier this week? That was actually a bit, that was right and wrong. So there was some bot testing going on. Some of that bot testing was bots that we were working on internally, not necessarily for market making, but to spread our risk a bit, and to cover some of the extra margin that we're giving to for the extra collateral that we just raised, 2.5K from 1K. And there was one or two clients of ours, one that came from the FX side that was testing bots. So not necessarily market makers. Testing went fairly well. A few tweaks that need to be made from the bots, a few tweaks we need to make from the API side for these specific bots. And there's a few things we need to do from our side, from our strategy, from being able to make sure that we can handle raising collateral even higher than 2.5K. So when in the sandbox would that allow CM to 5 XCM security-like properties? To give, I guess. We're not going to apply security-like properties to a utility token because it's a utility token, and that would mean we couldn't trade it here in Europe. What it would allow us to do, should we want to, is allow us to create a product like convertible debt, or equity and sell it for CoinMetro. So basically an STO would allow us to do that. We don't know if we're going to do that. It's a possibility, but the XCM would remain as it is but if we were to do some type of security offering, we would have probably a swap feature that will allow people to either use XCM to purchase into that product or do a swap, basically. Hi, Kevin. I've seen countless insults on CoinMetro not even being able to get listed at CoinMarketCap correctly. How can this still not be solved? I can see countless insults on CoinMetro not being able to be lit. Well, it's not about us not being able to be listed. It's about CoinMarketCap having, first of all, changing the rules after we applied and then never responding to us. And then finally responding to us and taking weeks and weeks in between each response. And then finally, every time they make a correction because we tell them what they did wrong, they make a new error. Giving them our APIs and then where it clearly stated how to pull demo data and how to pull real data and then pulling demo data. Then us explaining how our wallet system works. Then them telling us that we need to name the wallets, us doing that. And then them taking the wrong data from the named wallets to show circulating supply. And now about a month and a half after that, still not updating that and telling us that they have a specific policy for how they look at circulating supply, which does not work for our model. And it will never work because we are an exchange that holds tokens in a vault for clients that have not gone through KYC or simply have not withdrawn those tokens off of our system. So it's not about us failing, it's about CoinMarketCap failing to understand the complexities of our system and not being able to read an API. That's basically what it is. And yeah, CoinMarket, I don't know why people place so much faith in a CoinMarketCap listing. That doesn't drive price that much. And if it does drive price, it's because people are manipulating and saying, oh, we got listed at CoinMarketCap and doing a bunch of market making to push up their own volumes, which 99% of people on CoinMarketCap do. And CoinMarketCap doesn't really have a way to filter out fake volumes. So I know you guys just say CMC is incompetent and suck, et cetera, but I've never seen any of their coin have problems with their deal. And well, David, that's a bit of a that's probably not true. How many tokens are you involved in? 20, 30, 50, 100 max? How many tokens do you know that have applied to CMC? How many tokens of those tokens you think have had problems? Maybe you haven't witnessed it, but I guarantee you if we're having issues, there is a slew of projects that have had the same issues and probably never gotten listed. It's very hard to know who never got listed because how would you know they never got listed if you weren't involved directly with the project? Alex, thank you for the answer. You just stated that you are close to funding, which is great. How is CM funding its current operations? Well, we fund our current operations with funds that we've raised, with the revenues that we do bring in, and through shareholder funds as well. So, you know, I pay for pretty much all my travel. I pay for several different things inside of CoinMetro out of my own pocket. And it's not out of my salary because my salary is the statutory minimum to keep my visa here in Estonia. So I don't get paid a lot of money at all. I have somebody at McDonald's probably makes more money than I do in terms of salary. So, and most of our upper level executives also take the absolute minimum salary. So, but yeah, still fundraising. It's just smaller ticket fundraising. The bot testing brought the trade volume up to lights we've not seen too often. Are you still focused on big retail market or more on the big volume traders? We're a retail firm, but retail firms also have larger volume traders that like to cannibalize retail flow. So the focus for us is retail, because it's not just about trading, guys. It's not just about trading. TRAM and margin posting and all these things will elevate us just above trading, as will the banking side, the challenger banking side. So it's not just about trading, guys. Right now, it's about trading because it's the products that we offer. But yes, we are focused on, obviously TRAM traders for the most part are going to be not institutions, but they're going to be more high volume traders for sure. So there's definitely places to anywhere there's retail volume, higher frequency traders will be looking to trade so they can cannibalize that retail flow for sure. Can you please explain exactly how the XCM burn will work with the total supply automatically decrease like every second, and when will this be implemented? So the burn works based on a formula. The formula is based on the fee structure, the fees that are taken from every trade. That basically creates parallel order that buys XCM. XCM traders will also be able to use XCM that sits on their account. The amount is calculated or basically every time there is a trade, in order to lower the amount of work that's done by our back end to not slow down trading. I believe it's every 4 hours that the XCM actually gets purchased in bulk, something like that, if I remember correctly. And then the burn would happen at the end of every month. So, and it's not actually a burn right now. We've changed it to a vault. It gets vaulted, I think, for 5 years or something like that. I forget the vaulting term. I'll have to go back and look, to be honest. I was obviously involved in the initial structuring, but there's been some changes between finance, but it'll get vaulted, not burned. And the main reason it gets vaulted is because we never know if we may need at some point down the line those tokens. And that need can come from, maybe we want to give them away as a promotion. Maybe we want to do some type, maybe we're going to need them for some type of reserve mechanism. Perhaps they're going to be needed for liquidity reasons. Perhaps they're going to be needed for market makers to be able to provide liquidity. You never know. So they get vaulted and pulled out of supply for a long time period. Will we see Cardano on CoinMetro? It's definitely one of the ones that's on our list. Right now, I think we've listed enough tokens to see that volumes don't appear by themselves, even when multiple people ask them to be listed. So we're going to bring on a market maker probably before we see a significant number of more listings. What do you think caused last week's BTC price decrease? To be honest, when I was in Korea and before that Montenegro, I wasn't following specifically all the markets. Plus, I haven't been on Black's Live for a while because they were moving studios. I haven't done Crypto Live, so I haven't been completely up to date on market moves. So I'd actually have to go look. But I think basically right now we had backed open. Look, when I think the fact is that, buy the news, sell the fact. Remember that one, guys? So people were buying into this back thing for quite some time. That definitely probably or had a load on the market, especially when the volumes were kind of complete shit. So I think a lot of expectations went down the tube. A lot of people bought based on that back news, and they sold on the fact that back was launched and didn't make any difference to the markets whatsoever. When will you burn the correct total supply down to 327 instead of 330 million? As said a few times on this show, as soon as we have the complete accurate number. The problem is, to get that complete accurate number, we need to have some more people actually make withdrawal requests so we can understand the true number of XCM. I think we're 99% of the way there, but we still need a bit more numbers on the book. To get an exact answer on that, I will chat with finance. I would try over the weekend, though I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get a complete answer over the weekend, but definitely next week. Tag me on Telegram with that, and I'll get back to you on it. Any recent risk assessment looking at the fast pace of technology advances and its impact on DLT is available? Thoughts on quantum computing and cryptocurrency protocol change? Quantum, look, all these things, machine learning, quantum computing, they're all things that eventually are going to happen, but people really play these things up way too much. Every time there's an advancement in terms of computing, everything tends to catch up, guys. This is like Y2K, the whole world's coming to an end and then nothing happens. Most things will be quantum computing resistant by the time quantum computing is public. Quantum computing will be available to the military far before it's available to the public. And services that are reliant on security will make sure that they are up to par. That's for sure. When it comes to telephony, when it comes to finance, etc., the faster that crypto can be adopted in the finance world, the better it has, the better chance it has to be quantum computing resilient. Are you talking about if we've done a risk assessment internally on those, or if I've read some? I have read some. I can't say that that we've done one internally specifically on quantum computing, but in terms of just being up to date, I have read a few. So what can we expect end of month? Great job, by the way. Saul, end of month. So end of month. Let's see. Well, I'm expecting the website to be completed. We may even get Tram in by the end of the month. We'll have to see how that pans out. And we may start to see some additional IBANs and currencies roll in by the end of the month. That really depends on our partner. Outside of that, we'll probably see the new platforms come out, meaning that we're going to have this Express platform, which will be kind of intermediate combined with some additional new cool features, and then having our Pro platform, which will be margin and trade linked into one with some additional cool features. Probably see that by the end of the month as well. And I think we'll see some cash in the coffers by the end of the month. Have you read about Google claiming serious progress in quantum computing? Yes, I have. What will be the impact on crypto if quantum computing takes off? Well, crypto will simply catch up, guys. Yeah, I read it, but a lot of that stuff was clickbait. 2020, they're not going to be able to break Bitcoin. Quantum computing is one of the next big things, just like AI, just like machine learning. Most of those things, to be honest, up till today are very basic in comparison to probably where they'll be in 10 to 15 or 20 years. Quantum computing is no different. I do think that Google will make steps, but also don't underestimate the US government and their long arm on the fact that if you're the first to quantum computing, you basically control the universe. And don't think that from a commercial aspect, the government might not step in and put a little step in that. And also don't think that the military doesn't have the technology before Google does. What feature is the one that you think will impact XCM price the most? I think what will impact XCM the most is usage of the platform. Where I think we will see the most usage is between Tram and Tram is definitely going to see usage. That's for sure. It's the same thing with PAM accounts and FX. We'll definitely see more people on Tram eventually than we'll see on the trade platform, and eventually we'll see more people on the trade platform, but Tram will win out initially. And I think margin posting, if marketed correctly, can see a great deal because it's better than staking because you can earn more money, and the money is actually derived from something that is sustainable. Staking might not always be sustainable. When will you get the provider of the currencies on board? Will that mean that people don't have to do conversion to euro first? Yep, that's correct. You'll be able to deposit and then at some point as well trade in other major fiat pairs and be able to deposit in non-majors like Turkish lira, Hong Kong dollar, etc. Then you would still have to maybe do a conversion. We might not offer, trading in Turkish lira pairs depending on the demand, but it would mean that you can make deposits from those currencies without having to make a transfer to euro first. What do you, on behalf of what do you think of Sergey Nazarov? I had an hour conversation with him. I had more of a conversation with his head of development, one of his heads of business development, Dan, I think his name was. First impression was okay. He had been batting off a lot of shit throughout the conference. A lot of people coming up with dumb questions and just was kind of tired as he was sipping his tea or coffee. I forget what it was. First impression was okay. So. No, I can't give a huge full impression. I think we generally hit it off in the way that he was excited about what we were doing, and I enjoyed the conversation that we had. What is the benefit of using Chainlink for the CSD? Well, the Oracle system will allow us to pull in offline data and then peg that to an on-chain asset, which means we may be able to take fungible tokens and add non-fungible values to them. Meaning that KYC, et cetera, can be applied to that token and travel in the block, basically, get on chain. And I think that may be valuable to the point where we may be able to open up the CSD a bit more than we thought we were. There's also other things, but that was the first thing that came to my mind. It's the thing I want to explore the most. Outside of that, there's probably other things we can do in terms of KYC in between MTFs, where we can bring on KYC through an off-chain process and peg it on-chain to a wallet ID, and then that person doesn't have to get KYC to other connected MTFs. I think there's a few things that we can do. Are you still hanging on to your vision on turning Steam into a worldwide fintech that will change for a better financial market? Yeah, combined with the CSD, I think that is our ultimate goal. Our ultimate goal is to make one financial platform that people can use no matter where they live in the world, no matter if they're poor, rich, super rich, middle class, whatever. And that gives them the ability to earn passive income, to learn more about the market, to interact with other people in the market, to trade, to invest, to get passive income just on deposits, to be able to earn money, spend money, all in one interactive system where there's a community built behind it. And then when you bring in the CSD and regulated assets, it brings in a whole nother layer. They can get access to markets they've never had access before, fractionalized markets. They don't need a lot of money to participate. Once they're onboarded, they can get into all these different vehicles to be able to grow their wealth, regardless of where they started and regardless of how much money they have. And that definitely is still the macro vision. Thanks, Yo-Yo. So yeah, welcome to the CoinMetro office. Obviously, it's getting on 10 p.m. and it's been an hour, guys. I thought I was going to leave early. I totally missed what I was supposed to do at 9:40. So anyway, guys, yeah, that's any plans for crypto lending? Not right now. No, I don't. Crypto lending is a risky business. No matter how much collateral you take, this is a risky market. I know that most of the reasons why crypto lending took off is because there was a lot of ICOs that were holding on to a lot of crypto and didn't want to sell it, and they took out loans so they could have cash to have some cash flow in their business, and that might have worked out for them during this cycle. That's not always going to work out when they get caught on the wrong side of that cycle and they own more cash than they actually have now in terms of value in crypto. The lending market's going to see a bit of a bubble burst. And I'd like to see how the first couple bubbles burst before we truly were to get into that market. Margin posting is a bit of lending. So margin posting, yes, because it's controlled and there's no risk on our side in terms of collateral moving up or down. There's no big risk on the side of the client either. True. What about, you haven't gotten to Reddit questions yet? Yeah, I know, but unfortunately, we're going to have to save those probably for next week, or people are going to have to tag me in Telegram with their questions that were on Reddit, because it's already been an hour, and unfortunately, I do have a few things I got to get done here before midnight, hopefully. You haven't gotten, True, what about partnering with a good crypto lending company? Well, send me some info on some good crypto lending companies. I think people are underestimating the risk. If normal lending, with all the risk mitigation that happens from fractionalized banking and all these other things that mitigate the risk to banks, look what happened in 2008. Look what's going to happen with consumer credit when that bubble bursts. I see massive amounts of risk with crypto lending. So any thoughts, not financial advice, on ratio of TRAM versus margin posting, i.e. safe 2 to 3 TRAM margin on your invested collateral? Well, TRAM is definitely speculative, where margin is a fixed rate of income based on how long somebody holds that margin. So I would say that margin is less risky. So depending on what type but it also has a cap on how much you can earn. TRAM, you potentially could earn much more depending on how well the markets move and how well the manager does. So I would say it all depends on what your risk appetite is. If you have a bigger risk appetite and you find a TRAM that's doing well, then you should put a little more into TRAM. But it still should be a relatively small percentage of your overall portfolio. And I mean your portfolio off-chain as well. Margin posting is good. Any form of lending is good lending. Salt and Nexo are the only two that I like thus far. Okay, so I've seen both. Like I said, I think everyone is underestimating the risk. Most you can take a loan out for 30% of what your collateral is. There's already been many times in crypto history where that would have been a losing battle. And it's not going to be the last time, not going to be the last time. And those cycles will continue. And I think the major reason why it took off is because there were ICOs sitting on bags and they needed cash flow. That no longer really is the case. So the question is, will normal people take loans using crypto as collateral? And that's a big question mark to me. Yep, I know Uphold quite well. We use them as a payment option on our my FX brokers. So anyway, I'll have a look. I'll have a look again. But so far, the models I've seen, I don't see the way they mitigate the risk. And yeah, they may be making money now. Maybe it looks nice now. Maybe it looks like everything's green now. But when the next cycle comes where that collateral becomes inadequate, what happens? Okay, guys. So we made it to 1 hour and 2 minutes, I think. So great. Didn't get to Reddit questions. Sorry about that, guys. Please, if you had a Reddit question, I didn't get to it. I will get to it next week. But if you need it answered before that, if you're just really, really stressing out that you didn't get your question answered, tag me a Telegram over the weekend with your question, and I'll answer it. Size of the investment of the Brazilian decreased. No, from their initial offer, it hasn't decreased. But yes, the two that pulled out put up some of those funds. So now the question is how the funds will be redistributed against that group or perhaps two additional members that may join. Lending business will make a lot because a lot of people will lose their shorts. Well, margin lending, well, not if you're the lending company with the collateral. That depends. You're welcome, Brian. Any brief thoughts about Coinbase raising their fees? Well, what it tells you is that, I said this a million times, exchanges need to diversify their income streams. Exchanges will not be making money as compliance costs rise with just exchange fees alone. It makes sense. That means that they probably have the largest number of their traders probably trade below that 50,000 a month. So they definitely have traders that trade more, but the onboarding costs of onboarding those smaller traders that trade one Bitcoin is significantly higher than the onboarding cost versus the money made from the higher volume traders. But they probably have a lot of low volume traders. So it makes perfect sense. It's terrible for marketing. It's absolutely terrible PR. And hopefully we'll be able to get some of their traders. I'm sure Binance US will pick up some of them as well. But it shows you that, well, what I said was correct, and that they don't have a diversified way to make money off those small time guys, except for trading. And that's very, very important, as you can see. Even somebody like Coinbase needs to raise their fees. Thanks for the feedback. Okay, guys, so have a great weekend. I know somebody asked me not to say it, but don't look at prices. Buy some XCM, wink, wink. See you guys next week. Have a great weekend. Spend time with friends and family. Don't take everything at face value. Take things with a grain of salt in life. Never give up. When you hit barriers, just find a way around them, under them, through them, or whatever, and keep on moving in life. And a lot of people will take a long pay attention to LTV. Yeah. Okay, yeah. There you go. Like I said, have a great weekend, guys. Appreciate you guys being here, as always. And tag me in Telegram, as always. I'll get back to you guys as soon as I can. And cool. All right, guys. Thought another question came in, but see ya. Thanks for being here. Cheers.